This week a couple of things took precedence over what I was originally going to show you, but it made for good footage nonetheless. Before we get started, I want to give a shout out to Josh Darnell. It's a young man I met at an event this past weekend who came up to me to tell me how much he enjoyed the show. So welcome Josh to Bulldog Bills, and we hope you continue to be an avid watcher of the show. In front of me you can see that the fairing for the Harley is done. During the last coat of clear a little bug flew into it, but I'm not going to have much trouble. I'll just sand him off with the legs and polish him out and it'll be fine. Enjoy this episode. The fairing's all wiped down and ready to spray. I have no idea what kind of design I'm going to put on with the white, but got to start somewhere, so I'm going to go ahead and shoot this blue on and it'll hopefully come to me soon. When shooting these types of contours, it's really important to keep your distance. When you come around this concave surface here, you want to keep the gun even, or I could come across this way, but I might do that as an overlay anyway, but it's really, again, really important to make sure that you're keeping the proper distance no matter where the curves are. Okay, that's one good coat. I'll let this set off and do two more. We'll let it dry and get ready for the white. This is what I have for the top being white, but if you look over here on the side, I'm starting to put a piece there on the side where I might want it to be white, but as I'm looking at this, it's going to look too choppy. So I think I'm going to get rid of that and just focus on what's on top, knowing that I can always add something later if I want to. But I think we'll just do white on top right there and leave the rest of it blue. If you're paying attention, you see that I made a little bit of a change to it. As I was masking it off, one side was a little off. I didn't like it, so I just untaped the entire thing and started all over, and I did something a little bit different. The nice thing is if I don't like it, I can just blast blue back over it tomorrow and start all over again. We're all masked off, just throw on a little bit of white, and we can unmask it and see what we have. Alright, we got a good base for it. I'm going to put one coat over top of that because I don't want the edges to be too sharp. Then I can unmask it and see how it looks. There it is, white and unmasked. Doesn't look too bad, not too much white. So next we'll get it cleared and see what it looks like when it's back on the bike. Got the clear mixed up and ready to spray. You want to make sure that when you're spraying, not only are you covering the front where everything is seen, but also the lip underneath around the back side of it so that the paint is still protected. Last week you saw me pull the rear out of the parts tractor. Now we're going to get this one pulled off with a good one and replace it with the other one. Just like before, we're going to get the foot pedals out of the way, get our perimeter bolts off. And then we'll be ready to remove it. The perimeter bolts are out of the housing, so now we're just going to pull this one out. Since this one's no good, we're not going to use the loader or worry about it. I'm just going to try to yank this one straight out. Just like that. The housing with the bad bearing assembly has the hydraulics coming in from the bottom of the casing. The other one, it comes in from the side of the transmission. But I'm thinking if we remove that plate, we're going to find that our hydraulic lines will fit into there. So that's going to be the next thing we do, is pull that apart and see if we can switch those without having to remove the entire bearing assembly. The belt got thrown on the case loader, so I've got a new belt to put on it. The idler and the tensioner look real good. Normally we would replace those along with the belt like on a car. But these are still in pretty good shape. Got good resistance on them, so there's plenty of grease. So we're just going to put the belt on and get this machine back running. In order to gain better access to the engine, we went ahead and raised the front bucket all the way in the air. But when you do that, you want to make sure that there's some support for the cylinder, like it is here, to lock it in place so that it can't fall down while you're working on it. Here's what remains of the belt that was wrapped around the crankshaft, so I got it pulled out. Now with the reservoir bottle out of the way for the radiator, I've got access to the pump at the crankshaft. So I'm going to take those 3 bolts out there and hopefully be able to push it forward enough to get the belt through there, and then we won't have to take it any further apart. The bolts for the pump are out of the crankshaft, and I've got it pushed back on the spline shaft, just enough room to get the belt through there. Got the belt on. I had to use a 1/2-inch ratchet. You can see it taking the, I think you can see it taking the slack off of the belt there. So we've got it all round in the correct direction. We've got the tensioner put on it. So now we can get that pump put back on at the bottom and start putting this thing back together. Now that it's all back together, let's start it up and see what we got. Can't get much better than that.
Like my voice in the end yelling at you.
They're always yelling at the end.
This is one of my bigger saws. Right now, pull cord is not rolling the clutch over to turn the engine, so I need to pull this apart. Now it is missing one screw, but even if I hold it tight to it, it still doesn't work. So I haven't used it in a little while, so it just need to be cleaned up and freed up a little bit. But I'm going to pull the whole thing apart and see what's going on in there, and we'll get a new fastener and put it all back together. Here's the pull starter apart. Got this piece here. When you pull on it, centrifugal force will kick this out against the flywheel and allow the engine to spin, and then once it's rolling, it'll roll back. It's got a little drag to it, it's a little sticky, so I'm going to pull this apart and kind of clean it and grease it a little bit, and then we should be ready to go. So let's first pull this piece out like that. That's going to allow me to lift that piece out like so. Definitely don't want to lose that or forget which direction it goes. And let's get that out of there. See, a lot of sawdust and dirt from years of use. We'll get it all cleaned up really good and put it all back together. It's all cleaned up now and got a little bit of grease underneath of it, so let's get the clip back on and see if it works. Okay, got to make sure that fits through that slot, okay, so it can move, and that's what helps to kick it out and retract it. So let's see what we got. Alright, so we can see, and it's going back in. So you can see if I pull it out manually, and it kicks itself right back in. So it's doing what it's supposed to do. You saw the big tree that I took down. Now I'm getting busy sharpening the chains for a couple of my saws so I can finish cutting it up and get it split. I'm grinding these at a 30-degree angle, which is pretty typical for a chip chain, and I'll show you what I'm doing to achieve that. I've got it set up in the jig here so it's pulled back nice and tight, got the correct angle at 30 degrees. Now I'm going to bring the stone in and just touch it. Once I've got that done, I'll roll this forward, skipping a tooth because it's every other tooth, because they're two different angles every other one. Now that first set of teeth are done, I'm going to take and loosen the bottom here, rotate the table, set it to 30 degrees also. Now we're going to cut the opposite teeth. Same thing, I want to pull it nice and tight against the lock here. Keeping my hand here, pulling it tight. Then we'll keep rotating them down until we hit every other one on this side. Along with sharpening the chain, you should also dress the bar. The bottom of the bar receives a lot of pressure as it's going through the wood, so you can actually get a little lip here that needs to be filed off. So you're going to want to use a flat file on that, which is the reason a lot of guys will flip the bar over every other time they sharpen the chain, and I do the same thing, but I still dress the bar each time. So all you're going to want to do is just keep it relatively flat, come across that edge, and just knock that edge off. That way the bar will last a lot longer too. This is one of the bigger saws that I own. I have some two-man saws that are bigger than this one, but as a single operator, this is the biggest one I have. This one has the same problem that the other saw we worked on did, where the pull start isn't engaging. Again, probably just from sitting, haven't used it in a while. We'll get that taken care of and get this one fired off, and, but we'll probably show you that one next week. Next time on Bulldog Builds, we'll see if we can get that big saw starter working and running. We'll get the fairing back on the Harley and see how it looks. And we'll pull the cover on that one old housing to see if we can get the hydraulic lines to work like it was on the old housing. See you next week.